हम सभी अपने बच्चों के लिए एक बेहतर कल चाहते हैं। We all want a better tomorrow for our children. We work hard, we save money, and we build a life for them. But sometimes, in the race to give them everything, we forget the most important thing. We forget to give them a legacy of honesty. Some elders, driven by greed, make mistakes. They think their actions are a shortcut to success. They believe that a little wrongdoing today will secure their children's future tomorrow. But they are mistaken. A house built on a foundation of lies can never be a home. It is merely a structure waiting to collapse, and its falling debris often lands on the heads of the innocent next generation who had no part in the original sin. This is a story about one such family. It is a story that reminds us that the consequences of our actions do not die with us. They live on, sometimes for generations. The head of this family, let us call him Mr. Verma, wanted to leave behind a great inheritance for his two sons. He saw a piece of land, a valuable property that belonged to a distant, trusting relative. Instead of working hard to earn something similar, he chose a darker path. He decided to take what was not his. He believed this act of theft, cleverly disguised, would be a gift to his children. He thought they would be proud and prosperous, never imagining that he was not gifting them wealth, but a curse that would follow them for the rest of their lives. The sons grew up in the shadow of this secret. They knew their father was a respected man in the community, but they were unaware of the crime he had committed in the dark. They enjoyed the comforts that came from this ill-gotten property, never questioning its origin. Their father taught them about right and wrong, about dharma and karma, all while hiding a skeleton in his own closet. He convinced himself that what he did was for the good of his family. This self-deception is often the first step towards a bigger downfall. He thought his secret was buried deep, but truth has a way of coming to the surface, often at the most inconvenient times. We must always remember that the greatest inheritance we can leave our children is not property or money. It is a good name. It is a legacy of integrity and truth. Mr. Verma, in his desire to provide material wealth, robbed his sons of something far more precious: peace of mind. He planted a seed of deceit, and he watered it with lies, hoping it would bear the fruit of happiness. But a poisonous seed can only grow into a poisonous tree, and its fruit will bring nothing but suffering. This story serves as a cautionary tale, a stark reminder that the path of dishonesty is a lonely and destructive one. The plan was set in motion with cunning and precision. Mr. Verma, with the help of a few unscrupulous associates, began the process of creating fake documents. They forged signatures, created false sale deeds, and manipulated land records with alarming ease. Each forged document was a brick in the wall of lies he was building around his family. He paid bribes to corrupt officials to have these fake papers entered into the official government registry. To any outsider, the documents looked perfectly legitimate. The stamps were correct, the signatures looked authentic, and the paperwork seemed flawless. He had created a perfect illusion of ownership, a mirage of legitimacy that he hoped would last forever and fool everyone. He hid the original rightful owner's documents deep within his home, a constant physical reminder of his crime. He told his family that he had legally purchased the property after a long and difficult negotiation. His wife and sons believed him without question. Why would they doubt him? He was their protector, their provider. They celebrated this new acquisition, unaware that their celebration was built on the foundation of another person's loss and betrayal. Mr. Verma watched his children play on the land he had stolen, and a part of him felt a pang of guilt. But he quickly silenced that voice, telling himself that the ends justified the means. His children's happiness was all that mattered, or so he thought. The real owner, an elderly man living in another city, was unaware of this treachery for a few years. He trusted Mr. Verma, his relative, to look after his ancestral property. It was only when he decided to sell the land to pay for his daughter's wedding that the truth began to unravel. When he visited the land registry office, he was shocked to find that the property was no longer in his name. It had been sold to Mr. Verma years ago. The ground beneath his feet shifted. The betrayal was not just about property. It was a deep wound inflicted by someone he had considered family, a man he had placed his complete trust in. This discovery marked the beginning of a long and painful journey. The rightful owner, though old and not very wealthy, was a man of principle. He decided to fight for what was rightfully his. He gathered his original papers, his proof of ownership, and knocked on the doors of the court. Mr. Verma, confident in his web of forged documents and corrupt connections, was not worried. He told his family that this was just a minor dispute, a misunderstanding that would be resolved soon. But he knew, deep down, that a storm was coming. A storm that he had created himself, and one that his children would be forced to weather long after he was gone. The court case began, and with it, the family's peace of mind started to erode. What Mr. Verma had dismissed as a small problem soon grew into a consuming fire. Lawyers' fees started piling up, and the endless court dates drained the family's resources and energy. The sons, now young men, were forced to accompany their father to the courthouse. They sat on hard wooden benches for hours, listening to legal arguments they barely understood. They saw the stress on their father's face, the fear in his eyes that he tried so hard to hide. The confident patriarch they had always known was slowly being replaced by a worried, anxious man. The stolen property was no longer a symbol of prosperity. It had become a source of constant tension and anxiety. The case dragged on for years, as legal battles in our country often do. The initial confidence of Mr. Verma began to fade. The rightful owner's lawyer was skilled and persistent. He meticulously presented evidence, pointing out inconsistencies in the forged documents one by one. Experts were called in to verify signatures and stamps, and their reports began to cast serious doubt on Mr. Verma's claims. The family's reputation in the community started to suffer. Whispers followed them wherever they went. The respect they once commanded was replaced by suspicion and gossip. The sons found it difficult to look their friends in the eye, feeling a sense of shame for a crime they did not even commit. The stress took a heavy toll on Mr. Verma's health. The constant fear of being exposed, the financial drain, and the loss of social standing wore him down. He suffered a heart attack, a physical manifestation of the immense guilt and pressure he had been carrying. His sons nursed him back to health, but the man they cared for was a shadow of his former self. The lie he had told had become a cancer, eating away at his soul and his body. He had wanted to give his children a life of comfort, but instead he had given them front row seats to his slow and painful downfall, a life filled with uncertainty and court appearances. Even after years of fighting, there was no end in sight. The case moved from a lower court to a higher court, and the cycle of hearings and adjournments continued. The sons, who should have been focusing on building their own careers and families, were trapped in their father's battle. Their youth was being spent in the corridors of justice, fighting for a piece of land that was never truly theirs to begin with. The property, which was supposed to be a blessing, had become a heavy chain around their necks, dragging them down into a pit of legal and emotional turmoil. They were paying the price for their father's greed, a debt they had not incurred. Time waits for no one, and eventually, Mr. Verma passed away. He died a broken man, his dream of securing his children's future left in tatters. One might think that his death would bring an end to the family's ordeal. But in cases of property and deceit, the fight does not end with a person's life. The legal case was passed down to his sons. They inherited not just the disputed property, but also the legal battle that came with it. The burden that their father had created was now squarely on their shoulders. They had to continue the fight, not out of greed, but out of a desperate need to protect the family's name and what little they had left. The sons were now fathers themselves. They had to explain to their own children why they spent so much time with lawyers and in court. They had to use their hard-earned money not for their children's education or future, but to pay the legal fees for a mistake made by their grandfather. The cycle of suffering continued. The lie had transcended a generation. The original sin, committed in secret decades ago, was now a public spectacle, a source of generational shame and hardship. The property stood as a monument to their grandfather's folly, a constant reminder of the high price of dishonesty. They were trapped, unable to sell the land and unable to live on it in peace. Ultimately, after a legal battle that spanned more than 20 years, the court ruled in favor of the original owner. The truth, however delayed, finally prevailed. The forged documents were exposed, and the Verma family lost the case. They lost the property. They lost all the money they had spent on legal fees. But their biggest loss was not financial. They lost their peace, their reputation, and 2 decades of their lives fighting a battle that was based on a lie. They had to face the humiliation of defeat and accept the bitter reality that their father, the man they had looked up to, was a cheat. This story teaches us a simple yet profound lesson. गलत काम का अंजाम हमेशा गलत ही होता है. The result of a wrong deed is always wrong. Lies and deceit may provide temporary gains, but they leave a permanent scar. The burden of dishonesty is not just borne by the person who commits the act, but it is passed down to their children and even their grandchildren. The most valuable asset you can give your family is not wealth or property, but a legacy of truth and integrity. Because a name built on honesty stands tall forever, while an empire built on lies will one day inevitably turn to dust. Savdan Rahain, Satark Rahain.